You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Woo! Wolves start the season in a backyard brawl, I guess I'd call that one, Jack. Anthony Edwards sets a new franchise record, 41 points on opening night as the Wolves fight their way back. They hold on in Portland, 118-114, start the season 1-0. What's happening back in the lab? First T-Wolves postcast of the 2025-2026 season. If you're new here, first off, welcome. Thanks for joining. This is your Timberwolves instant reaction deep dive. Rest assured, we'll be back here after every single T-Wolves game. You're going to want to get to know this guy, by the way, Jack Borman, Wolves and NBA expert. Give him a follow on X at Jared Borman 13. I'm Luke Inman at Luke_Spinman. And of course, another must follow, Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Timberwolves show each and every day. Find all the video on YouTube, Locked On Wolves channel, all the audio wherever you find your podcasts. Lots to get into from this one, Jack. Biggest turning point, game MVP, what we'll be talking about tomorrow. But first, just off the top, I'm curious, back and forth slugfest. Again, franchise best 41 points on opening night for Anthony Edwards, passing KG. He was ferocious, but it took the Wolves a while to kind of find some rhythm, man, find their footing. Props to Coach Finch and his staff for continuing to kind of tinker with those lineups, if you will, find something that kind of finally clicked. Guys like Jalen Clark stepped up huge, even somebody like Bones Highland of all people as well. But a big picture, 60-second kind of knee-jerk reaction. What's the number one thing that stuck out the most 4 quarters into the season?
Yeah, I think it was just the fact that the Timberwolves looked pretty composed in the clutch. I mean, the Timberwolves played the most clutch games of any team in the NBA last season. And this season, why would they start it any differently, right? Last season they relied quite a bit on Mike Conley in those situations, and Ant, I think, settled for jumpers and three-pointers far too often instead of trying to attack. And I liked the way that he attacked and got to some of his spots late in the game. And I liked that they, the early part of the clutch, they played through Julius Randle, and then they let Ant kind of take it home the last two-ish minutes of that game, and he delivered. So I think the way that the Wolves kind of clawed back into this thing with defense and then let their 2 best players take them home offensively is exactly the formula that this team needs when they're trailing in a spot going into the fourth quarter like they were tonight. So certainly good to see them kind of find a winning formula that we all know works from these last couple of seasons and put it into action tonight.
Yeah, well said there. A lot of different avenues we could go, but let's get into the biggest turning point from tonight.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
It seemed like no matter what they did, they just couldn't manage to get over the hump and just take that lead. 3-point deficit, 4-point deficit, 7-point, got it down to 1. But like I said, probably a lot of different directions you could go here. But what was kind of the defining moment, if you will, in this one that kind of helped the Wolves click and put it all together, kind of rally back and hold on for good? Biggest turning point tonight. When was it? Why?
Yeah, I think it would just be at the start of the fourth quarter, having Jalen Clark out there and the tone that he set defensively. Had 2 steals in the first 90 seconds, 2 minutes of that fourth quarter. And I just think the intensity that he plays with is super important to this team, with Nickeil Alexander-Walker not missing a single game in the 2+ seasons he played in Minnesota, and just coming and really caring every single night. There was never a question if Nickeil was going to play hard, if he was going to leave everything out on the floor. And I, we were talking on the phone before this game tonight of, who's going to replace that. And Jalen Clark certainly is a guy that I think is poised to replace that in this rotation. I just thought the intensity he brought on that end of the floor was absolutely spectacular. I mean, with Jalen Clark on the floor tonight, the Timberwolves had a defensive rating of 102 in the 17 minutes that he played. And they had a defensive rating of 115 in the 31 and a half minutes he did not play. So I just thought the intensity that he brought set a really important tone, and the ball contain was really important for the Wolves in that fourth quarter. It was something they did not do very well in the first 3 quarters. And as a result, the Trailblazers took 30 attempts at the rim in the first 3 quarters. They took just 2 in the fourth quarter. So I think when you can prevent teams from getting all the way to the rim, I know they took some free throws in that fourth quarter. 10 of their 19 in the fourth quarter came at the free throw line, but holding them to 4 of 21 shooting 4 of 19 shooting in the fourth quarter is a tremendous mark. And I think all that was downstream of the, kind of the heart and just relentless effort that Jaylen Clark played with. And I think he deserves a ton of credit for, the Wolves at least preventing this game from getting to double digits in the fourth quarter. And then the Wolves really having to just kind of gun to try to get back into the game. And I think it allowed him to just take it possession by possession. And, really like the way that Chris Finn, we'll get to it later, but like the way that he kind of looked down his bench and was looking for guys who could bring some juice. And Jaylen certainly brought it.
Yeah, no doubt. You touched on it. I do want to ask you about Jaylen Clark a little bit more. Coach Finch tinkering with these lineups. But before we get to that, let's hand out some hardware. Player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
You know where it's going, kind of obvious, but he's got to give his flowers, man. 41 points, again, sets a new franchise record, passes KG, who had 36, 5 of 10 from 3, 8 of 8 at the stripe, 7 boards, 1 assist. We heard a lot about Anthony Edwards working on the mid-game jumper, right? I thought going into this game, Jack, that we weren't going to see it on full display so early in the season. There's going to be some ebbs and flows, if you will. Talk to me about Anthony Edwards, the 41-point night, the ice in the veins at the end with under 2 minutes, showing up in the clutch like he always does. But the kind of complete game that you saw from the preseason training camp, even in the months leading up to game one, if you will, and then what you saw on the floor tonight from Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I think for Ant, the most important thing for him was just the way that he played in the clutch, right? I think, we talked about it in the open, Ant shot 42.5% on 115 shots in the clutch last season, had more turnovers, 15, than assists, 13 last year. And tonight, heck of a way to start his campaign. He was 4-4 for 10 points in the clutch. I like the way that he was more than willing to play off of guys in kind of the early part of his fourth quarter stint. And then, made a couple shots, saw a couple go down, and then just took the reins to end it. I thought it was just a really mature way of kind of layering things into his game. I like the way too in the mid range, how he was willing to post up, not necessarily at the end of the game, but was willing to post up and use some of the good footwork that we've seen from him. We saw a couple of step throughs for buckets. And just looking at Ant's shot mix tonight, I thought it was fantastic. Ant took 10 threes, made 5 of them. He took 7 shots in the mid range. In the long mid range, and then missed all 3 of his kind of short mid range shots, but then had 8 attempts at the rim, and then also got to the free throw line at a pretty good rate. And it was nice to see Ant get some foul calls go his way, and he made all 8 of his free throws. So I think just the way that he was able to mix everything in was really strong. I think 1 assist is to 4 turnovers. I think some of that is guys just not knocking down shots, but I think he was more of a play finisher than a playmaker tonight in this game, given how stout Portland's defense is, and given the way that he didn't really do a whole lot of initiating in this game. So I think for him, just the way he mixed everything together with all the unique talents and skills that he has, and just I thought stayed in the game the whole entire way through. And for a guy who has had some back spasms this week, it's obviously great to see him be able to come through with 41 pretty big ones, and also contribute on the glass too. I thought he had some really nice rebounds in a way that we were really hoping for him to have more of last season, and he did in some important moments, and I thought he did that again tonight.
Segment 2, after the quick break, we'll get into the rotations that we saw and kind of what you gleaned from that. But give me an honorable mention here before we go there. Julius Randle, 19 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 2 steals. Jane McDaniels with some clutch shooting at the end, 18 points. Give me an honorable mention that you think deserves some flowers, some spotlight, some love as well.
Yeah, for sure would have been Julius Randle. I had Randle in here before Ant took over in the clutch. I think for, we'll get into some of the offensive issues in segment 2, but again, I just think like when there's so much ball pressure and there's all these guys that are playing super physical and in your face and really taking away your space, Randle is the one guy in the Timberwolves, more so even than Ant, whose physicality just overwhelms an opponent. And I think the way that he was able to be really physical, catching the ball in the slot, isolating, getting into the teeth of the defense, collapsing the defense, and then kicking the ball out. For him to have 6 assists and no turnovers is, really, I think the formula for him is a guy that can initiate, especially without a traditional point guard on the floor. I thought that, being able to get the ball to him either in the slot for him to attack in isolation. They got the ball to him at the elbows late in the game to isolate in the post there. And then traditionally more in the deep post, I thought was great too. I mean, he was 8th in post up efficiency, points per possession, among those with at least 100 post ups last season. So I think that's something the Wolves will try to get to more now that everyone kind of knows how to play off of him. So he was fantastic in this game.
Plenty more deep dive from this one, including the offensive woes early on, Coach Finch switching up the lineup, that mix and match, and what we'll be talking about tomorrow. That's all coming up, though, right after this. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Monarch Money. You ever go to your bank account, you wonder, where did my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment, so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your own personal CFO. Monarch Money gives you visibility, gives you control over your finances. And it's not just another budgeting app. That's why I love it. Complete financial command center. You track all your accounts, investments, spending. It's all in one place. So you stop managing your money and instead you start building some wealth. I know when I started using Monarch Money, I realized how much money I was spending on streaming services, right? HBO Max, Apple TV, Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, you name it, I had it. Now I budget smarter. I save more than ever. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com. You're getting 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA, half off your entire first year. We're also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, without a doubt, the most fun I have playing daily fantasy, because you can win up to 25 times your money this basketball season. And why I love it, it's so easy to play. All you got to do, you select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on any projected stats on any given night. Plus, Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay too. Quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code LockedOnNBA. First deposit match up to $100. That's promo code LockedOnNBA at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. 100% bonus deposit match up to $100. Last but not least, we're also brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if it's a must, then you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built's changing the game by turning your rent into rewards you can actually use. When you pay for rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels, airlines, future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. Built, they finally made everyday life a little bit more rewarding. From the neighborhood to the travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards. Start earning points around your neighborhood. Go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. And use the link so they know we sent you. Offensive issues, Jack. You touched on it right before the break. That's a gritty, brutally tough Blazers defense. As we knew coming in, you and I talked before the game. You mentioned just how tough they're gonna be on this Timberwolves offense. But games within the game, right? Like what were the top 1, maybe 2 things that I don't know, maybe had you scratching your head a little bit, throwing your hands up on the offensive side of the ball tonight?
Yeah, I don't know that it was really like throwing my hands up necessarily, but just the way that the Wolves struggled to get the ball across half court. I think, Dante DiVincenzo especially saw it last season in the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder that, he and Mike Conley both just kind of struggled to get the ball across half court against some of the more intense pressure from the best defense in the league in the Thunder. And I think, Portland's got a lot of guys that they can throw at you between Holiday, Kamara, Avdia, and Jeremy Grant too when he wants to play. So I think Dante was benched for the rest of the game. Only played 20 minutes after he had his 6th turnover in the third quarter, 6th turnover for the game. But I really want to see the Timberwolves do more of having guys that aren't necessarily traditional handlers bring the ball up the court. Like TJ Shannon can totally bring the ball up the court. You saw it on the last one of the last possessions where Rudy ended up getting that putback dunk where he was more than comfortable handling it. I saw, Jaden brought the ball up in the second half a little bit more, as did Randall, just because those guys, defenders, their matchups, aren't guys that necessarily going to, pressure them for 94 feet like a Drew Holiday or a Toumani Kamara or a Denny Avdia might. So I think, trying to look for that a little bit more would be helpful. And, I've talked to several, I know we haven't had any shows in the preseason, but I've still been going to these games, talking to guys in the locker room before before and after games, just trying to say, get a sense of, hey, like, if we don't have a traditional point guard, in the game, and Mike Conley, who's going to be that number, who's going to play the one, if you will, in the offense? And they all kind of looked at me funny because they don't think of needing a traditional point guard on the floor. They just think of, anybody can initiate these types of concepts and actions that they want to get to repeatedly. And they know that, okay, Julius can play a spot, or Jaden can play a spot, or Ant can play a spot, and all these different types of plays and concepts and sets they have in the half court, and they're willing to get to that interchangeably. And these guys have played with each other enough where they know and they trust, like, okay, we don't necessarily need Mike to get stuff organized. We can get into these types of plays and concepts and and find guys where they're comfortable playing. So I think that's going to be something that's interesting. I think it's, guys know what these concepts are. They know that anybody can initiate them. They know basically if Rudy's going to be on the floor, he's generally going to be in one spot, but then everyone else on the floor can play any other, spots on the floor, if you will. So I think that's something that you're going to continue to see.
Let's get into what we'll be talking about tomorrow.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Bottom line, Jack, Wolves are on pace for 82-0. You got to love that. Didn't look pretty, as you mentioned. Finch mixed and matched quite a bit. We're not going to do a preview of the Lakers game on Friday night, another West Coast game, another late game, by the way, 9 p.m. tip. But what did you glean from tonight's game that you can take into Friday night's game, I guess, as far as kind of a pro and a con and things that you're looking to maybe look a little different, or maybe Finch making some adjustments on the court, offense, defense, whatever it may be?
Yeah, start on the negative side of things. I think, obviously Dante started for Mike at the point guard spot. I don't think that's going to change. Mike and Dante do similar things really well defensively. They can both chase. They can both get over screens. They have very active hands. We saw Dante play some really solid defense and rebound the ball well tonight. But I think it's just a matter of, can Dante's offensive skills, make up for maybe the lack of organization or the lack of trust and that you have in Mike Conley. And we didn't see it tonight, obviously, with 6 turnovers in his 20 minutes and was benched after that sixth one. So I think you want to see Dante, come back and maybe play off the ball a little bit more. Like I was just talking about, have some other guys initiate some possessions and be willing to take the ball up the floor. So I think that's kind of an easy fix for me. I don't think, many of Dante's turnovers came in the half court, kind of in the flow of things. So maybe allowing him to play off the ball and utilize his shooting a little more would help. And then one really positive, TJ Shannon, that's kind of been our guy. Again, he had 21 assists to 11 turnovers, almost a 2.0 assist to turnover ratio, above the league average of about 1.6. And he shot 9 of 14 from 3 in the corners in the preseason, and he kept that going. I thought he played some really good connective basketball on the offensive end of the floor, had 3 assists and attacked the rim. He had 5 assists and just really attacked the rim well, like you saw in that penultimate possession where Rudy ended up getting that putback dunk, was all because of the rim pressure from TJ. So I think all the mistakes that he's going to make for the most part, at least offensively, are just from playing hard. And you can definitely live with those. And I think on the defensive end of the floor, he can certainly clean up some poor closeouts that led to some overhelping and some fouls and some, open layups. But that was a problem for the entire Timberwolves defense in those first 3 quarters. So I think the more that, he continues to play, the more that he's going to get comfortable. But I think, again, didn't do anything that was beyond what he can do. And I think that Finch just really likes that TJ is always going to play hard, and he can live with TJ's mistakes. Because like I said, most of them come from him playing hard rather than him being indecisive or lazy or anything like that.
T-Wolves start the season with a gritty comeback win. Ant-Man, he looked like Superman, 41 points. That's a new franchise record. Wolves hold on in Portland, 118-114. Special shout out to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us from game to game. Wouldn't be here without you. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Go follow Jack, by the way, at JRBorman13. We'll catch you Friday, staying on the West Coast. It's the Lakers, another late one, 9 p.m. tip. Until then, signing off.